Hi, look, Chris Johnson, CEO of the Urban Taskforce. I just want to bring people up to date with some research we've done on apartments and who lives in apartments, but it's in the context of articles like this cropping up in the media. This is the Sun Herald. It's obviously trying to be a bit sensational here about the big change Sydney is going through. Sick of the big squeeze. New poll shows Sydney voters think overcrowding is ruining our city. There seems to be a big drama happening about density and growth in our city. We're even getting parliamentarians with an election only a year off saying things like this. This is the member for Macquarie Fields saying, stop the squeeze. Too much development is occurring. We're worried about this. We've got people like Dick Smith saying unplanned growth must stop now, writing articles that somehow immigration is the cause of greater population growth. Even in a recent coverage in the Daily Telegraph, seems to be a big issue now, trying to blame apartment living and greater densities on increases in crime and big dramas happening and negativity around this growth and change. I've tried to calm this down. I've put out an opinion piece here saying time to end the blame game, that people seem to want to just blame developers. What is happening, however, I think, is a different issue. It's not just overdevelopment, it's actually a swing to a different way of living. People in Sydney are now moving from a suburban lifestyle towards an urban lifestyle. And this document is research we've done that looks at this swing and how big it is. It's actually a lot bigger than most people think. In this page here, we look at the shift that's happened about the detached home. Most of us think suburban detached houses is how most people live in Sydney. The reality is that in 1991 that was the case. 68% of homes were detached. By 2016, that's down to 55%. By 2024, likely to be down to 49%. And by 2057, it could be down to as low as 25%. 50% of homes in 2057 are likely to be in apartments. So a big shift is occurring, but it's interesting to look at what are the sort of personality types and the characteristics of those who live in apartments. And on this table here, we have looked at the people who live in apartments compared to those living in houses. Younger dwellers are in apartments, 46% compared to 33% in houses. Formal education, a base degree and a secondary degree, 54% in apartments, 40% in houses. Born outside Australia, taking public transport, more close to walking to shops and things. There's a big shift that's happening in the personality types who live in these apartments. So we've then looked at a basic breakdown of who lives in apartments over a number of years. So these wheels from 1991, 2016 and projected 2024 show 5 different types of people who live in apartments. The orange are vertical families. In 2016, 20% of all apartment dwellers, that's of the 30% in Sydney, are families, and another 8% in the blue are one-parent families. And this could grow to 24% and 8% in 2024. So we've looked carefully at these families and their groups. Here's a basic page on vertical families. We've looked in great detail at who they are, what they're made up of, what their characteristics are, where they live. We've looked at Cosmo couples. That's 27% of apartment dwellers and the sort of characteristics that they have. We've looked at solo metros, that's single people living in apartments, 34% at the moment of apartment households and their characteristics. One-parent families, not a big amount, but it's 8% of apartment dwellers at the moment and what drives them. And finally, at group households, this is 9% of apartment dwellers, to understand them. This is what the mature argument should be doing. The mature research should be looking at who are the people living in apartments, not just scare tactics that this is different, it's changing our environment, it's not what we want. These are real people representing all the parts of our society living in apartments, It's the way of the future. Big cities around the world are working this way. I think we've got to calm the debate down and focus on the value and the important types of people living in apartments.